Everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. Now, we have something fairly exciting for you today. Now, for those of you who are longtime subscribers or have watched the channel for quite some time, you may remember sometime last year when I had an interview with an extra who worked on the set of Wheel of Time. Now, that was a really fun video to do, and to this day, still is one of my favorites. Well, recently I was fortunate enough to be able to sit down with one of the stuntmen who's working on the series, which was really cool in and among itself, and I was able to ask a few questions, some general, and some a little more Wheel of Time centric, which was very neat. Now, this is going to be in the same format as my last interview. It was all text-based, and they don't want to reveal their identity or their photograph, basically because even though they're not breaking their NDA, we're not asking them anything to do so, and they're not actually revealing any information that would get them in trouble, they're still being very cautious and very wary because of the secrecy surrounding the project, which completely understandable. So I compiled the questions and answers I have here for you today, about 10 of them, and I put them in text format. I'll read them off, we'll talk about them a bit, and that'll be the video. So before we get started, I do want to mention that there are no spoilers whatsoever for this video. We don't talk about anything actually centric to the plot of the characters of the show, so you don't have to worry about being spoiled if you haven't already read the books, or if you're watching this later on, watch any of the episodes of the show. All right, so let's dive into the first question. How much prep do you usually have to practice stunts before filming? Now, this was really interesting to me to ask this one because it's fast-paced. I really don't know how much they have this blocked out beforehand. The answer was it really depends on the project and how difficult it is that stunt. Sometimes just one day or even only on the shoot day. Sometimes weeks before a scene if they are very complex. So, really neat, and kind of the answer I sort of expected, because they're going to go in and they're going to do stuff that day that they've never seen before, but it may be comfortable for them to do. But bigger stuff, they may have to block out, plan, and practice so they don't get hurt. So pretty neat. Question 2. Who did you film with? Is it usually the main unit with the main director or a second unit with an assistant director? Now, for those of you who are wondering, they do have multiple units and multiple directors working on these episodes, so they may have, say, a main director directing the 2-episode block, but they have assistant directors and secondary units in other places doing other things. So that's why I asked that question. If you mean in general, in shooting process, mostly using the main unit, sometimes second unit or action unit, or a splinter unit. In the Wheel of Time, it was the same. So they generally followed the same format as most other shows this person worked on. Question 3, has COVID impacted your work? Now, this is pretty interesting because I do know that the actors, actresses, cast, crew, everyone working on the set had to go through a fair bit of changes when COVID hit, just like everyone else in the world when it comes to your jobs. And this was interesting because as a stunt person, they're going to be involved in things that's going to bring them in close contact with other people, things that are going to, really affect them. So their answer was a lot. Having some breaks, fulfilling COVID safety measures, not easy but doable. So essentially what they're saying is it's not entirely easy, just like everyone else's job when you make your changes for COVID, but it's doable. So they can still work, they can still shoot safely. Question 4, is it normal to be working on more than one project at a time, or do you stick to one project? Now this was interesting to me because I wanted to know if they had an exclusivity contract with Amazon or Wheel of Time. And the answer was both. On bigger and longer projects, core team stunts, the main team, is sticking with just one project. Smaller projects are additional stunts working only on daily basis and jumping from one to another job. So essentially, if they are a stunt person for a particular actor or actress in the show, or if they are a core stunt team that they're going to be doing some of the bigger stunts for the series, they're going to stay there. They won't work on anything else, so they keep themselves available. But they do pull in contracted people just for a day or two for some of the larger stunt scenes, smaller stuff that they're going to do, stuff like that, when they need more than one person. Question 5, do you have a favorite kind of stunt to do? And this person's favorites are fight choreographics and acrobatics, wires. So I think we're going to see a little bit of both, actually quite a lot of both in the Wheel of Time. Now, we've seen some behind the set stuff where they're showing essentially what appears to be people on the sides of mountains, over rivers, people in wires, things like that. So we know we're going to see stuff like that, and this is pretty interesting that we're getting the answer that this is their favorite type of stuff to do. Question 6, who did you do stunts for in the Wheel of Time? Now, these next 5 questions were Wheel of Time centric, and I kind of swung for the fences, and I asked a whole bunch of Wheel of Time questions, essentially. Some of them I knew they would not answer, but the ones they did answer, even these, they were pretty, they played it close to the vest, and they're pretty coy about them. And this one is a story they can't answer yet. So they are doing stunts for a particular person, but they wouldn't tell me which one in particular. I might give too much away in who they are, which, well, makes sense. You don't want to see them getting in trouble. Question 7, what was your favorite part of working on the Wheel of Time? Now, this is a question I ask everybody I speak to, cast, crew, anyone I speak to that's related to the production at all. What's their favorite part? And everyone generally says something completely different. So it's always a very interesting answer. And this one was full project, great team and crew. And from what I understand, all of the cast I talked to, all of the other crew members I talked to, and the production team I talked to, everyone says the same thing, that everyone was great. The people there were great, working there was great. It was a good work environment, and they had a good time. So this answer really didn't surprise me, even if it was brief. I mentioned, as soon as I started mentioning Wheel of Time, yeah, they kind of clammed up just a little bit. Question 8, did you have to wear prosthetics? Now this was, I knew they weren't going to answer this one, because this is basically going to tell us if they're a Trolloc or not, because Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, has said that they're going to use practical effects as often as humanly possible, in lieu of VFX or special effects, basically because it looks a little bit better close up. And for myself, a child of the 80s, I grew up on horror movies and action movies and sci-fi movies with all practical effects. So I really, really enjoy it, and I don't tend to like a lot of the computer-generated stuff, unless I can't tell it's computer-generated. And the answer to this was not myself. So we know that some people are wearing prosthetics. The showrunner and other people have already verified that, but this is another verification that, yes, there are people wearing prosthetics on set, just not this particular stuntman. Question 9. How did you feel about the scope of the production, the sets, the costumes, compared to other work you've done? Now, this one I've asked to a few different people, and they've all said the same thing, that it was a huge, huge project, very big scope, and they were all blown away. This particular person's answer was amazing and big. And you're seeing a theme here, very small answers when it comes to the Wheel of Time stuff, which I fully expected. And then the last question I asked, and again, this is a question I asked almost everybody I talked to, did you read the books prior to working on the show? And this person's answer was not. No, they did not. So I'm not terribly surprised at that. So a lot of the cast, a lot of the crew, and a fair number of the production team did not read the books prior to actually working on the show. And that is mainly because they didn't know they would be working on the show. I mean, it was just they get hired for a job. It was an acting job, or it was a production job, or it was a crew job, whether lighting or stunts or things like that. And they're not really terribly big fans of the Wheel of Time. They didn't even know what it was. However, and this is really interesting, almost everyone I spoke to after working on set picked the books up and they started reading them. In fact, there are quite a few actors and actresses working on the show right now that didn't even particularly like fantasy novels that much, that picked them up and started reading the Wheel of Time and thoroughly enjoyed it because they wanted to know what was going on. So they're doing the research for their characters, which was really, really very neat. Now, that was all the questions that I got answers to out of this particular person, but it gave us a little bit more insight into what's going on in the Wheel of Time, and I'm kind of hoping that in the next few weeks, they'll ramp back up again. We may start seeing some more information coming out, whether it be leaks or official news, because they are starting filming up again in April, and they're going to film for basically the duration of April and May for about 6 weeks or so, just to finish up episodes 7 and 8. And after that, they should be completely done and then working just on post for the season. So I'm really hoping to see maybe another teaser or two, maybe a trailer, and some other information very shortly, which would be really, really very neat. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments down below of this video. Do you like this? Do you like this style of video where I get to interview someone and actually answer some questions? Now, I will very rarely, or if ever, probably not, going to bring someone on the channel and show their face and actually talk to them about the Wheel of Time without the blessing of Amazon. And right now, let's face it, I won't get that. Very few people are getting that right now, but if I ever get the chance, I 100% would do that. But for now, what we can do is there are a number of people I talk to that are quite willing to answer questions like this anonymously, and I may be able to get a few more interviews in, which would be very, very neat. So if you folks just like this type of video and you want to see more of those, let me know, and I can certainly set them up and roll them out over the coming months, because I mean, I have a lot of fun doing it. I ask, there are maybe 10 questions in this video. I probably asked 50. So there's that. All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking with me here to the very end, and here's to many more.